Hi, I'm Carmen.
And I'm Stephen, and this is Vienna Past and Present,
where we walk through the gilded and sometimes not so gilded halls of Vienna's history.
So, as we skip, trudge, tumble between the holidays, we thought we'd do one last Zeitgeist episode for the year. And we definitely need a cleanse after the last two episodes. So Carmen, how was your Christmas?
My Christmas was pretty good. It was fairly low-key this year. So for me, it's always a bit of a decision of where I'm going to celebrate, because I have family in the US, I have family in the south of Austria, I have family here in Vienna. Mm-hmm. So this year it was a Vienna Christmas, fairly low-key, but super nice. But, 3 days of family, basically, and friends. And that's enough. I'm ready to just chill for a little bit.
That is very
kind of be over. I'm over the Christmas cheer, let's say.
Very fair. Yeah, for me it was kind of similar. Just went to the suburbs here in Seattle where my parents are, and it's kind of like a little food fest, and we kind of hang out in comfortable clothes and just sort of watch stuff and get toys for the dogs and just hang out. So yeah, it was pretty chilled out as well for
Do you have any specific traditions, like movies that you always watch or anything? A lot of families have that, right?
Yeah, so, we have a couple that we do watch. We watch the National Lampoon one most years. This year we tried some new ones. So we watched, there's one called Red One with The Rock and Chris Evans.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I just heard about this. It does not sound good. How was it?
It is more watchable than you think, which I feel like the bar for Christmas movies, that's sort of what that is, right? I'm like, all right, you have this diverse crowd often within your own family, and you're just trying to find stuff that everyone's going to like enough. And I think that one kind of achieves that, so it might be better than you think. Anyone listening? Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that was good. Otherwise, tradition-wise, it's we just kind of try a bunch of new little recipes and food. I try to remember to pick up this pretty authentic, I guess, fruitcake from this Danish bakery here in Seattle, but I forgot that this year.
Why? Fruitcake is the fucking worst.
I had just never tried it, and I saw it a couple years ago here, and it was this little chunk of fruitcake, and this was less than maybe a slice size. And it was $15. And I'm kind of why is this so expensive? I'm is this high end? They're well, yeah, this is a very traditional kind of recipe that we work on for 1 or 2 months beforehand. And I'm oh.
But it tastes terrible always. I hate fruitcake.
Okay, I did not grow up with it. And love is not the right word, but it's one of those things where you're kind of oh, it's sort of good. And you just kind of keep, slowly eat it. And that one half slice size, that is more than enough for the entire family for a year. So
a lifetime, yeah. I would argue, but sure.
So yeah, I mean that actually didn't happen this year, so I guess I'll be happy. But yeah, that's one of them. But yeah, nice chill time. I mean, I don't want to say glad it's over, but I'm kind of okay, the shopping is done, and it was good, and yeah, I'm good for the year.
Yeah, it's enough after a couple of days.
So we lazily, I will admit for myself, Googled Vienna and Christmas and weird stories, and here's what we came up with for the episode today. We didn't want to fall into the trap where we just explain the differences between Austrian and American Christmas, but we looked into it, and there were some bits here that surprised me at least. So we're just picking the most interesting parts, I swear. Gonna ask Carmen for some clarifications, we'll say, on Austrian Christmas traditions. It was a little more different than I expected. So the first up is Santa Claus versus Christkind. Christkind?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. It's like a child. Walk me through this.
It is. Christkind is the way that it's pronounced. So kind, like kinder,
okay.
Kindergarten, whatever. So yes, it is child. The Christ's child is the thing that in Austria, that's the story here, right? That the Christkind comes on Christmas and brings the presents. So Santa Claus, kids also know Santa Claus because it's just so prevalent in the media and in marketing and whatever. Okay. So that kind of also exists as sort of a side character, whatever. I think it's a very confused tradition here at this stage because it's everything's kind of mixed together and nobody really knows what it is anymore. But the traditional Austrian thing is the Christkind, which is anyway a very weird kind of mix of things. Because it is supposed to be the baby Jesus, but then the baby Jesus brings you presents, and you're why is an infant
just
doing anything?
The logistics are always
Okay.
very questionable, okay, for any of these, right? There's like, reindeer pulling sleighs and, entering via chimneys, like, but I heard like the Christ child, and I'm kind of like, okay, he can't even pick a present up, all right? Like, that has even more questions to answer for B. But
Yeah, like,
again,
it's the baby in the manger that like suddenly now flies. It can also fly, so it's sort of like an angel as
wow,
well.
okay. All right.
And it like brings presents. And so basically the story is that parents or like the family will at some point always be like, oh, I think I just saw something fly by, on Christmas Eve, and they'll kind of pretend like there's something going on, and then somebody will ring a bell, and the bell signifies that the Christkind has been here.
Oh, okay.
And so this all happens on the 24th of December. That's also a difference, right? Because in the US, the 25th is kind of like really where kids get presents and you kind of do the whole thing.
Yeah.
So here it will be the evening of the 24th, but it's kind of a very stressful tradition because during the day, the Christkind also brings, if you do it really traditionally, which most people don't anymore because it's a real pain, but like technically the Christkind also brings the tree itself, which means that the tree cannot be there beforehand.
Whoa.
And then it needs to like miraculously appear.
That is a busy day for someone.
Yes, it is a stressful day. It is a busy day where like somebody goes out with the kids, and then the other person, or like, whoever is at home kind of does all the rest of it. But yeah, you have all this stuff to do. And then, the kids aren't allowed to look in that room when they come home, which I'm like, okay, by like age 5, kids should be figuring this out. But like, all right.
That's right. Okay.
And then it's like, yeah, you ring the bell and then you all go in and the Christmas tree is there with all of the presents, everything wrapped. And traditionally, and my family still does this, you have real candles on the tree. So you have real candles that are lit.
Wow.
Meaning that the tree also has to be very fresh. That's like part of it too. I mean, you cannot, like in the US, people set up their tree like beginning of December or something, right?
And it's like that's its own family thing often, you know what I mean, where it's like, oh, let's decorate it together and let's like make a garland would be like some hyper traditional thing,
which is super nice, and I like doing that, right? You play some Christmas music, you like have some cookies, you make your little garlands, you decorate your tree. Here that has become more common too, that people will, set up the tree earlier or do it together as a family. But really traditionally, it would be like on the day of. And then if you have a very fresh tree, you can also put real candles on it because the danger of it burning are much lower, although not zero.
I mean, I would think that would happen every year. There would be like a miniature little fire.
I mean, it probably does happen every year somewhere.
Yeah, well, I was thinking like every year at every home. You know what I mean? Like, how do you put a candle
Our tree has never burned
on a tree with a bunch of little pins? Really? Okay, I gotta look this up and just be like, where do people even place the candles so that they're not burning? Like, I would be like on the very top.
No, you put it all through the tree. You have like little candle
what?
holders that clip on. And of course you need to space it so that it's like on a branch that's, a little bit separated from other branches. But I mean, you need a tree. Maybe the trees are a bit different than in the US too. They're not such bushy, like thick trees. You will have more spaces between the branches because, for the candles, you would need that. So, maybe that's a difference as well.
That makes sense.
And then my family also does sparklers.
This is asking for it. Whoa.
Which is a whole extra situation because, first of all, they're only lit for what? A minute, maybe, and they go out really fast, so you need to light them.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're time critical. You need to light them at exactly the right moment so that when the kids come in, it's all sparkling and lit and whatever. It smells horrific. Sparklers are not meant to be lit inside, and there's a very good reason for that.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, I did not think of that either. I'd be staring at the street being like, please do not go up in flames.
Like inviting a fireball.
The smell, everyone's already getting like smoke inhalation of various sorts. So,
so that's the smell of Christmas. Wow. But I have to say it is actually really nice. It is like very magical when you have these like sparklers on the tree and the real candles. I mean, there is some real like charm to it.
That's cool.
Although, the chance of the whole thing going up in flames is not that low, I think.
Non-zero. Right. Okay. Wow.
But I don't think anybody does that in the US, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen it there.
I mean, I feel like I've seen some old-timey movie where there's like a candle on a tree, but I don't know if I've ever seen sparklers or even heard of that. I don't know anyone who puts candles on trees now. I mean,
Yeah, we never did it in the US either, actually. Like, we always just had the lights.
Huh, okay.
But here in Austria, my family in the countryside does it. My family in Vienna doesn't really. Maybe it's more of a countryside thing, too. Because, yeah, I mean, to be fair, my family in the countryside, they have the woods all around them. You go out and cut the tree the day of, it's easy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, like we were saying, this is a little more different than I think, at least I initially thought. So this is kind of interesting to cover here. You had something about the history of how the trees came to Vienna. Because I guess I think of this as like something that's been happening for, I don't know, centuries and centuries, and like no one could ever remember where this first started. I sort of had that idea just about like Central Europe in general and like their Christmas trees, but that was not the case.
I mean, I sort of had that idea too, but when I looked into it, that might be true for Germany because the Christmas tree tradition comes from Germany originally.
Okay.
But there is pretty good evidence, I guess, of when it first was introduced to Austria and especially to Vienna. So it's not that old. Apparently the first Christmas tree was introduced to Vienna around 1816, which is way later than I would have expected.
Yeah, that's very recent, it seems like. Okay.
Yeah. And so it was introduced, I mean, it was a tradition that came from Germany. How they came to this tradition, I don't really know. I didn't look into that. But it was introduced to Austria by this German princess who was married to an Austrian archduke. And so she set up a Christmas tree in their salon or whatever the fancy people did. And then it kind of spread amongst the nobility in the next years. And then, slowly it kind of spread as a general tradition to the masses as well. But yeah, it's not that old of a tradition. But you have to also wonder, like, who came up with this in the first place? Let's put a tree in our living room? Why? It's like random.
I mean, yeah, someone eccentric, okay? But thanks. I mean, I like the smell of it.
What did they even decorate it with back in that day? Orange peels or something?
I don't know. It's all stuff we could easily Google. But, let's just sit and suppose, okay? We did plenty of Googling for this already.
Well, we did say up front that we were kind of lazy about our Googling, so here's the evidence for that.
Yeah. This is a vacation somehow. Is there any kind of traditional food?
Yeah, there's two traditional foods, I would say, in Austria. Either fish or goose.
Okay. Kind of different.
Yeah, they're kind of really opposite ends of the spectrum. And Austria's not a fish country normally, but Christmas, like my family always had fish as the traditional food for Christmas.
Okay, because I'm thinking like, I guess from like those Dickens stories, what was it? It was a goose? Was Tiny Tim buying a goose? Whatever. I feel like
Christmas goose is a thing.
Goose, like, yeah, it might be at least like an English thing, right? But I guess here, I don't really know if there's any traditional Christmas food anymore.
Isn't there like Christmas ham?
Actually, yeah, ham sounds kind of, that seems right.
I'm glad I'm explaining it to you.
But I mean, yeah, right. That's like kind of the level of specificity maybe for like the Christmas foods, at least in my life and my, experiences here.
So you guys don't have any traditional food that you do?
No, just like dinner that we want and then snacks. And honestly, okay, if there's a more traditional food, it would be Christmas cookies.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a standard, yeah.
Okay, and that's standard there too. Because I think here it's like, maybe there's like sugar cookies or it's like gingerbread. Maybe it's more dessert centric is like the stuff, but.
Okay, yeah. Gingerbread is big here too. Yeah.
So, all right, all this happens on the 24th. Is there like, what is on the 25th then? Anything? Like
not
church traditionally or something? Or that would be like a church day? Is that why it was like nothing happened?
I mean, people do go to church, but now we're definitely outside of my wheelhouse here.
Yeah.
No, but there is a midnight mass on the 24th that people will go to. Like in the countryside, my family does do that. But actually, it's usually at 10 p.m. now. I think it used to be at midnight, but then, I don't know, people don't want to go that late, so it's at 10 p.m.
Right. Or here it's like, it lasts until midnight, so like technically, it's on Christmas or something. But
Yeah. And then you drink like some mulled wine afterwards and kind of hang out and then, go back home.
Okay, nice.
That's like kind of the tradition there. But no, the 25th, there's actually nothing really happening on the 25th. The 25th is a holiday, like a national holiday. It's really just a time where people go to visit family, the other side of the family, or maybe go off skiing someplace or whatever. So there's nothing really happening. The 26th is also still a holiday, like a national holiday, St. Stephen's Day, but nothing really happens on that day either. It's just another day off. I guess historically there might have been some reason for this. Maybe it was church related, but these days I think it's just, people go to visit their family. And so you have a couple of days off where you can travel and visit people and maybe go skiing.
Cool. That's a solid 3 days. Okay. Some activities and there's some rest.
Yeah, because in the US, is it only the 25th that's officially a holiday? Or what are the holidays?
Actually, yeah. I think it's only the 25th. The 24th, what often happens, around here is like, places will close a little bit earlier. So it's like, all right, this is open until 5 or until 3. But yeah, 26th, really, things will be open again. And then some people have off work anyway. You can't expect every single place to be open, but many are. So they just pick back up.
I mean, interestingly, that's actually for the 24th the same here. Even though 24th is sort of the main holiday, the 24th is still technically a working day. Just almost all businesses either give it off anyway, or it's only a half day for most people. I think rarely it's a full day. But the 24th is not officially a holiday. Actually, it's only the 25th and 26th, even though the 24th is like the main event, which is like very weird.
Okay, and importantly, like when do grocery stores close there?
Oh my God. Oh, the grocery store situation is such a nightmare.
Your food security a little bit for me and my like snacking. So when would it be open till like noon on the 24th?
Yeah, maybe even a bit later. I think on the 24th they may even be open till like 3 or 4. But like that's it.
There's no last minute shopping.
No. You got to plan that shit. And then there's nothing open on the 25th. There's nothing open on the 26th. And if it's a year where the 27th happens to be a Sunday, then there's nothing open on the 27th either because Sunday, everything is always closed.
Christmas diet. Okay.
You got to really plan ahead, yes. I actually, just the other day, I was walking home and this random German guy stopped me on the street and he was like, hey, like, what's the deal with the grocery stores around here? Like, where can I still buy something? And I was like, dude, on the 27th is when you can buy something. Like, I'm sorry.
Like, I'll sell you an apple for 20 euros.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was like, what? In Germany, everything's open. And I was like, well, welcome to Vienna. Nothing's open around here.
Yeah, that's wild to me. Okay. I guess I thought that was going to be your answer, but that's worse than I thought somehow.
I mean, there's like gas stations, I guess, that you can go to. There's like a couple of grocery stores that are open at the train stations and like at the hospital. But I mean...
At the hospital? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, like that's what you have to resort to.
Huh, okay.
So yeah, speaking of, so both of us lived in Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Japan has some really interesting holiday traditions as well. Were you ever there during Christmas?
I don't think I was ever there during Christmas Day. So just kind of like the run up to it. I went on a trip with you one year. I went home one year. I did just New Year's one year. So arrived after, but never the actual day. So yeah, we could do like a little Japanese sidebar here. Do you want to explain the Japanese version?
Yeah, so I kind of thought of it now as well with the food, right? Because the Japanese eat KFC on Christmas, which is like the most kind of random tradition ever.
That.
And they actually really do that. I mean, they buy, and it like has to be KFC.
Talk about this like corporate coup. You know what I mean? You like co-opt an entire holiday.
Most successful marketing campaign ever, yes. And honestly, I think it really came from the fact that KFC like convinced the Japanese people that that's what Americans eat on Christmas. And so that's what they do now, and it's become a tradition, and every American is like, what? Never heard of this, you know?
Yeah. That was cool.
I mean, on the whole, it's like a big couples holiday there, right?
Right, more coupley.
And so New Year's is more the
family one. Yeah. And it is kind of interesting, like how all of this is sort of localized, right? Like I remember it feeling like this pure commercial expression. It was cool to see, actually, like just cool takes on all of the, Christmas motifs. Not like crosses, not baby Jesus stuff. It was more like Santa, Christmas tree, like lights, a lot of silver. It was cool to just see the colors change. Yeah, but then it was also like saturated still at that like Christmas level. I thought it was cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was, in my memory, it was like all lights and Mariah Carey. And like just
Yes.
kitsch times 10,
Yeah.
you know? It's just like all the kitsch aspects of Christmas, like turned up to 11 with none of the religious stuff, which I'm kind of like, okay, that's a legitimate interpretation. You know, they're just committing fully to the commercialism of the holiday.
Yeah, this, like, don't take this the wrong way. This is both of us recommending Christmas in Japan. Okay.
Yes, it's great. It's great.
Good. And then I feel like it was over and it was just over. And they're like, yeah, there's no like hangover from Christmas. So like, no, this is just one of the holidays.
Yeah, it's just a holiday where there's lots of lights and
No one needs to recover. Yeah.
yeah, no recovery required. And like young people go on dates. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what it's about, right?
Yeah.
An interesting kind of somehow commercialized take, but yeah, just really interesting to see how those traditions kind of translate to an environment where, you know, the people are not Catholic or Christian, but they kind of adopt kind of the fun parts of the holiday for themselves.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that kind of removed a little bit, like that kind of family aspect or maybe that like religious aspect. That's kind of put in New Year's. And then there's like a couple-y more fun, more like commercial, just fun one that's like a week before. I think it's kind of a good pairing or something. Anyway,
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, recommend it. Okay, next up, no Central European Christmas discussion would be complete without some Krampus talk. Yeah, so I know a bit about this one. It seems like it's more of a recent cultural import here in the US. From what I understand, it's like, you know, the idea in the US is like, you get coal in your stocking if you're a bad kid from Santa, but in Central Europe, the stakes are a lot higher for those kids. Like, they will be kidnapped, maybe eaten. They're put in a bag. It's like a demonic goat that's huge and threatening. Right? Like,
The cannibalism aspect is new for me. I don't
really?
think-
Oh, I
don't
thought
think
that.
you'll be
Okay, I thought
eaten.
there was like legitimate threat of being eaten. Okay,
I
well,
mean, tortured, beaten,
I'm here to
kidnapped,
learn.
yes.
Okay, good. That's good news.
But right, yeah, Krampus, you know, comes out of some pagan traditions, I think. But the
Okay.
idea really, and it's kind of mixed together with this Saint Nicholas fable, which is then, but then
Really?
it's different from the
Alright.
Christkind and different from Santa Claus. Although I
It's a
think
lot of characters all of a sudden. All right.
so many. It's like such a cast of
Mhm.
characters. So you have here Saint Nicholas, who comes on December 6th, I think it is the day of Saint Nicholas. And
Okay.
that tradition is that he will like bring chocolates or like little treats for the kids. Like you put out your shoes or your stockings. This is where the stockings kind of happen here. We don't
Oh.
do stockings for Christmas. It happens
Okay.
already at the beginning of December. And that's St. Nicholas Day, and then St. Nick comes and like, you know, gives little candies or whatever to the kids. But then he also has this, he's accompanied by the Krampus,
Mm-hmm.
and the Krampus is like, yeah, the demonic monster, devil kind of character. And so he's kind of like, you know, wearing a mask, has horns, usually has this like, you know, long kind of scary, spiky tongue.
Okay.
Has sort of this like devil / Satan iconography, right? The goat thing is part of it. Like it's sort of a goat, hairy human.
Okay, I was going to ask that. I'm like, okay, how goat is it? Or is that like the American version is like goaty? Okay.
I mean, he's depicted as a goat a lot, but then when
Okay.
people actually dress up, they usually dress up basically as this like furry, hairy yeti monster kind of thing with horns and like
okay.
chains.
Chains.
Yeah, yeah. They
Okay.
usually always have chains and some kind of club or whip or something like that.
Wow.
And yeah, the basic idea is that if you were a bad kid, then Krampus is going to take you away. Like he's basically going to kidnap you and drag you off to his lair. I have not heard to be eaten, but you know, to
Good.
basically be tortured and
Good.
kidnapped, and that's your punishment for being a
Okay,
bad kid.
I'm
So
glad I'm wrong about the eating part. It's like there have been horror movies here recently. Like I don't know how recent, like the last 10 years probably. One had Toni Collette, Adam Scott. These are like big name actors in it. That one was like a whole franchise. He was also a major character in that new movie I mentioned with The Rock and Chris Evans called Red One, making it sound like I love that, but like it was okay, but whatever, it's just like on my mind. So yeah, maybe he's having more of a moment now? I don't know. Anyway, so in Austria, like he'll show up around December 6th. It's sort of with St. Nicholas. Is this like a parade? Or how does he actually show up?
So there's different traditions, especially in the west of Austria. That's where like this Krampus thing is more celebrated, I guess, or where it's like a bigger thing. So Salzburg and Tyrol.
Celebrated. Okay.
Yes. And so they have, like, this doesn't really exist in Vienna, at least I'm not aware of it at all. So they also call the Krampus Berchten. That's another name for it. And then they have these Berchtenläufe, which are these, it's called like a Krampus run, basically, or a Perchten run, where basically teenage boys or like, I don't know, young men will dress up as Krampus with masks, with horns, with chains, with like this hairy outfit, whatever. And they will kind of run through the streets and try to scare girls. Like, that's basic. I mean, scare people is like technically the thing, but basically they try to scare women and girls. And then they also vandalize stuff. And, you know, they're drunk. They're wearing a mask, so they're anonymous. People don't know who they are, which of course, and then it's like these gangs of men together, like roaming the streets with their like chains and whatever.
Wow.
It does get out of hand pretty much every year. And then, you know, people get injured or they vandalize stuff, you know, and people are drunk and it's like a melee. And I have never experienced this. I only know people who are like from those areas, and especially women are just like, dude, you don't go out of your house on that day. Like, it's horrible.
Wow.
Yeah, which is actually a really fucked up tradition when you think about it, because it's sort of legitimized violence basically against women that is just sort of like accepted on that day. Because like, oh, whatever, like that's just the Krampus tradition.
Wow.
But that's actually very, very messed up. And yeah, every year there's hospitalizations. There was one year, I think it was 2013 or somewhere around there, where it was particularly bad, where quite a lot of people were injured. And then it, you know, kind of became a big discussion about like, why are we even doing this? This is like completely deranged, actually, this whole tradition. And so there have been kind of movements to, well, first of all, kind of crack down on it and, you know, try to make it less brutal and less violent. And in Vienna, you have sort of like the nicer version of that in Vienna, because like in the city, it's very tame. And so you will have people who dress up. In a part of the city where I used to live, they would kind of be in cages, like these fake cages.
Okay.
And then when you walked by, they would like break out of the cage, but they wouldn't really chase you. They would just kind of like come up to you and give you a shot of like whiskey or whatever, which you're like, okay, cool, thanks.
Okay.
So that's kind of the nice version of it.
Better than beatings with chains. Yeah, I like that better.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be chased with somebody with a chain or a whip. No, not cool.
Okay, it's a little surprising. And yeah, this is something I would now like to Google. 2013 Krampus, Austria injury. Okay. Wow.
There may have even been deaths, honestly. I don't remember exactly, but it was like, you know, people were kind of in an uproar about it because it was like, okay, this is like really getting out of hand. So yeah, on the one hand, you sort of have the tradition of like Krampus coming. You know, Krampus will also come to your house. So that's like what I remember as a kid. That Krampus and St. Nicholas would come together.
Like showing you your options, kind of. You're like... Okay. Hang out with St. Nicholas or Krampus. Got it.
Yes. Putting the fear of God in you as a child. And it's like, well, I don't think you've been that good this year. Maybe you have to go with Krampus, you know? Like, very Germanic.
Someone coming, threatening your candy supply.
Very Germanic parenting, I would say. Where it's like, you told a lie once. Now you're going to be kidnapped and tortured in some fucking Krampus basement. The Austrian way.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
So, yeah. So there's like kind of variations on this tradition, but in all of them, it's like this kind of scary monster character who either for the children is going to like kidnap you and take you away, or, you know, for older people, it's like some teenage boy that's drunk, dressed up, and like chasing you down the street for no reason.
And like whipping you. Wow. So we'll have to bear that in mind the next time we watch like a Krampus franchise movie.
Yeah. So I don't know if Krampus needs to have that much of a moment. Like, I think he could take a seat.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Yeah, you know, he could tone it down a notch, in my opinion.
Okay. Next up, I guess this part is kind of about our own cross-cultural Christmas adjacent experiences, like to varying degrees, like when we were growing up. And this is sort of related to, I guess, what we've been talking about, some of these different holidays. So I can start here. I can talk about encountering St. Nicholas Day in Wisconsin when my family moved there around 5th grade for me. So I would have been about 10 years old or so. Our family didn't know about St. Nicholas Day really at all until we moved there. That was when I was still young. So Santa was coming to our house at that point. So I go to school. I remember hearing about St. Nick coming to these other kids' homes, and they were like, yeah, duh, he leaves candy in your shoes. What do you mean you don't know about that? So I came home, asked my parents about it, and then he somehow started coming to my house. I remember them kind of asking questions too. So there was kind of a credibility thing, some chinks in that for me as a kid. I think that started then, or I'm sure that would have started already, but I was kind of okay, this is a little less credible than
Definitely
before.
Raised a few question marks.
Yeah, he didn't come, and then I kind of told St. Nicholas what to do, and then he did it. You know what I mean? It's not how I thought that worked, but yeah, I don't know if it was that year, the next year, but I have this memory of this family-sized peanut M&M in my shoes outside the door. I don't know. So we were talking about this, it's kind of interesting to me, these cultural differences just within the U.S. And yeah, this one is kind of this, historically, perhaps famously German immigrant area in Wisconsin and Milwaukee specifically. And yeah, I looked this up online. This is something people talk about as being kind of uniquely Wisconsin, or the strength of this holiday there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's one of the more extreme examples too, right? It's a whole date. It has its own character, Saint Nick. That's not Santa exactly, but it's sort of not answered either to any grade schooler if that's him or not.
It's kind of the same thing, but earlier and not explained.
Right. And somehow this Saint Nick, I remember he was not overweight at all, but I was kind of wait, is it the same one? He was just this kind of dude with a hat. I don't know.
He's the slim, trim German version, and then fat American dude shows up 3 weeks later. Is that the story?
That's possibly what I was supposed to take away from that. I don't know. Did you do that growing up near Detroit? Did your Austrian family do St. Nicholas on the 6th?
Yeah, so we did it at home. We never had it at school.
Oh, and we did it at home. People were just talking about it at school.
Okay.
But I feel actually maybe there was something at school too. I'd have to ask my mom that.
Because kids here have it at school. So in Austria, you do at school get Saint Nick comes to school. Do they? I don't know if they put it in the shoe or not, but anyway, he comes and gives candy. So we did not have that in school in Michigan, although there are a lot of German and Austrian families in that area where I grew up. But we did it at home. My parents just did it.
So you have a Canada story, right?
Yeah, so for us, so my family first moved to Canada from Austria, and so that was sort of my parents' first, I guess, introduction or encounter to North American Christmas. And, this is in the 80s. It's not like they had Google or, someplace to really look up how things were.
Yeah, Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay, that's what they had. Something like
yes.
that.
We did have a whole set of Encyclopedia Britannica, yes, but it did not answer.
Wow.
It did not answer these life questions. And so when we first moved to Canada, so in Austria, like I said before, and especially back in the 80s still, the tradition really was to buy your Christmas tree on December 23rd, because it should be really fresh, because you put candles on it and whatever. And so, we moved to Canada, and then, I don't know, I think on the 22nd or 23rd of December, my parents were like, oh yeah, let's go get a tree, which does not work in Canada or the US, right? I mean, everything was sold out. There are basically
it's gonna be really picked over, half dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's nothing left.
They would make you a deal at that point. They'd be like, here, just take this.
I mean, probably they didn't pay much for it. Yeah, there is that benefit. But the tree that they bought, and I mean, I was young, so I don't remember this, but there are photos of it, and it is the saddest tree you've ever seen in your life. It's the Charlie Brown Christmas droopy tree with 3 twigs on it and 4...
Nice.
No needles left, and it's just the saddest looking tree ever. So that was what they bought, because that's all that was left. And so they slowly learned that maybe the 23rd of December was too late to be buying a Christmas tree. And so, yeah, over time, they kind of had to pick up all of these things.
Perfect. Right. And I mean, yeah, it doesn't even require moving to another country, right? You could move across Austria and all of a sudden you're being whipped with chains.
God, yes.
Okay. It could really be different.
All right, so we've talked a lot about Christmas and kind of different Christmas traditions now. But are there any other holiday traditions still upcoming for New Year's or anything January?
Yeah, we're kind of in the middle of them here. What do you do for New Year's there?
So New Year's, well, it's a time when I try to get out of the city because I hate New Year's in Vienna. I try to flee
Okay.
because it's just like such a free for all. Like in the US, you have fireworks, right? But they're like put on by the fire department, you know, like over a river or something normally.
Yeah, people get their own, but at least here it's not totally out of control. It's like someone might get one and there's like a beer, and
Okay,
it's like over in 10 minutes.
right. At least in my experience where I grew up in Michigan, it was like rarely did people have their own, and then it would be like a very small scale. Here, well, in the countryside it's better because there's more space and I can kind of live with it there, but everybody gets their own fireworks. It's like a complete free for all. And then in the city, people will just be setting off these massive fireworks in the middle of crowds. Everybody's drunk. It's like it's a war
Wow.
zone.
Okay.
Like I am not a fan.
All right.
I try to stay far away. So
Okay.
my plan, if I'm in the city always, is to either be like in an apartment that's high up where you have a nice view, or like a rooftop terrace or something like that is really nice because you have a view of all the fireworks
Yeah.
as they're going off. Because there's just fireworks going off all over the city. I mean, it's everybody shooting off their own fireworks from like out of
Okay.
like from their own terraces or from their balconies or like who knows where or out on the
All
street.
right.
But like you don't want to be in the thick of it, and so I really try to avoid it. But there is one quite nice tradition. Well, it would be nice if you didn't have to go outside to get there. The fact that you have to like
Okay.
interact with people makes it not so good. But in the center of the city, in the first district, they will do this like little parade through the city, like this kind of walk through kind of the main part of the downtown, and then it all ends at the square in front of the St. Stephen's Cathedral, and then they play the Blue Danube.
Okay, so like
Yeah, so you just have like a whole mass of people there. It's completely full. And so then they play the Blue Danube by Strauss.
sounds so classy all of a sudden.
It is that
Okay.
is classy. And then people waltz. So everybody kind of does a little waltz
Wow.
at midnight, which is very Viennese.
Okay. I feel like, yeah, grandmothers everywhere are rejoicing to hear this. They're like, oh, yes, of course this happens in Vienna. Good, that's kind of
It
cool.
actually is like the most Viennese thing, right? It's Strauss, it's waltzing, it's like out in front of
Yeah.
St. Stephen's Cathedral. And so yeah, it's a big public waltz, basically, at midnight.
Cool. That's
The
cool.
only problem is that you have like a bunch of drunk teenagers around setting off fireworks that like, take it down several notches on the classy scale.
Right, so people are probably starting on fire as they're waltzing, but like...
There's a certain danger aspect to it, yeah, that you wouldn't maybe
Yes.
expect.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, like Seattle does things. Like you're saying, there's fireworks from the Space Needle downtown. I tend to escape too. Like I try to just see it from home or like a street because there's so many hills here. You can kind of see
Oh, yeah.
from a lot of different areas down there.
And like over the water in Seattle, I bet that's super nice, no?
I mean, it's over the water-ish. Like the Space Needle is a little bit off the water, but yeah, like the look is kind of like that. There's like a lake too that's between them, so a lot of people will get on boats and like watch from a boat.
Oh, that's cool. I would do
yeah,
that.
that's a cool tradition, I think. But yeah, I mean, I like to be home and like be watching a movie or just watch it from a comfortable couch. We sound really old right now. We
I
used
know.
to do fire festivals all the time. We do New Year's Eve in a bar in Cambodia. Okay, we've done things for the record. I just want that to be recorded.
I totally forgot about that, but yes, we did New Year's Eve in
Yeah.
Phnom Penh, I think it was, right?
Yep. Yeah, and like that's not a holiday, this part, but the days between the holidays, I think increasingly here is kind of called like the taint of the year. I don't know if there's any German language equivalent word for that, but like, between Christmas/Hanukkah and New Year's Eve. I've just seen that a ton this year. I've seen that other years, but like this year they've really leaned into that. Is there anything like that here? Or anything like that there? in Vienna?
Not that I know of. Definitely, I mean,
Okay, you don't need to spread it.
the taint of Christmas. I've heard that before, actually, but I didn't know that people were really leaning into that.
I've heard it a bunch this year.
I'm like a bit disturbed by that imagery,
It's just
but
not
like,
needed.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, it does evoke, yeah, the date. Yeah, sure.
It just evokes, period. Okay.
Yes. But no, I don't know of any similar expression here. No, I think it's just kind of like...
Good news. We're ending on a good note then. Yeah.
We're keeping it clean over here in Austria, you know?
Right.
The only other thing that we do have that's particular to Austria, I think, is the 6th of January, which is still a holiday here. And it's the Day of the Three Wise Men, or I guess it's called the Epiphany in English.
Okay, right. Like that's a church holiday here. I don't know if that's like a holiday in any other state or something or any official level. Okay.
Okay, here it's a official day off, like a national holiday. So most people will take their Christmas holidays like through to the 6th of January because it just kind of makes sense to do that. But the thing that happens on the 6th, I mean, primarily nothing happens. Most people are just on holiday. But you will have kids that come around and sing, and they'll be dressed as the Three Wise Men.
Okay.
So there'll be like 3 kids, and they're dressed as like little kings or whatever, and they come around and they sing. They'll like knock on your door and sing for you.
Oh.
And then I think you're supposed to give them money, maybe like €1 or something. I'm not totally sure. And then what they will do when they leave is they will write this little blessing on your door, which is always like the year, and then C plus M plus B, which is the first initial of the Three Wise Men, right? I think it's like Melchior, Balthazar, and who's the third one? Casper or something?
Okay.
Anyway, their names start with the letters C, M, and B. And so in chalk, they will just write that on your door, and it's supposed to be like a little blessing or like, you know, wishing you good luck in the year.
Okay.
And so if you're in Vienna or in Austria, actually, I mean, it's a tradition all over Austria, you will often see in chalk this written on doors. So if you're walking around, you'll kind of see it. And yeah, it's exactly that. And so you'll keep it for the full year. And then the next year, you know, they'll replace the chalk with, you know, the next year.
Whoa, you keep it for the full year.
Yeah.
Okay.
People keep it up all year.
All right, interesting. All right. Okay.
Well, next time you're in Austria, you should look around because you see it everywhere.
Okay, because
if you're looking for it.
Yeah, this sounds like a lot more of like a week-long extravaganza kind of stuff. I mean, the Austrian version versus the American, I mean, I guess more efficient, you know. Just the 25th off, you know, kind of stuff. So it's like you get 3 days. There's something that's well into January. There's a lot more costumes. I'm counting at least 2 more costumes. There's a Krampus. There's like a little children's size wise men thing you're going to have in your closet. So...
yeah, there's a lot of accoutrements. Like you need a lot of costumes for this time of year. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's why we're here to inform people. Okay, so they're gonna know.
So they're gonna know. Yeah, Austria's full into Christmas.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I think that's more or less. I would say those are the traditions around here, or at least the main ones that I'm aware of.
Okay, nice. So we're halfway through this little sprint here. Have a good New Year's Eve, and Wise Men Day. Get your euros ready so you can, you know, re-up your door marking. Okay.
Pay those little children exactly for your door blessing. Yeah. So I think that's basically it. But happy holidays still. And yeah, Happy New Year to everyone, and we'll be back in 2025. That's it for our show today. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, share with your friends or leave us a 5-star review. And if you didn't like it, well then, don't worry about that review.
You can find us on social medias, Vienna Past and Pres on Instagram, or send us your episode ideas at viennapastandpresent@gmail.
Auf Wiedersehen, Pfiat euch, Baba.
Bye.
Und frohe Weihnachten.
Happy New Year, is that it?
It was a Merry Christmas.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Einen guten Rutsch is Happy New Year.
Okay, Happy New Year, you guys too.
Bye.
Bye.